This is a demo of Sinopia releases 3.12, 13, and 14, part of the late fall 2021 work cycle. I'm Michelle Futornik, the Sinopia product owner at Stanford. These releases include many major and minor improvements. So for this demo, I'll cover just the features that benefit from explanation and demonstration. As always, please see the release notes, which you can find here on the Help menu under Release Notes, or by going to help.sinopia.io, which will look like this, and clicking on the right on Latest Release. Those release notes give the full list of all improvements. Here we'll start on the search side, where there are two BIBFRAME related improvements. First, in the search dropdown, you can now narrow your search to BIBFRAME works, instances, or items before you search. So if I narrow to instance and use the asterisk, I'm searching for all resources with the class BIBFRAME instance. Next, when you see your search results, there's a new relationships link that appears for resources that have BIBFRAME relationships between works, instances, or items. If you click on relationships, you'll see other resources related to your search result, and you can act on those resources with these icons, just like you would on any other search results. So the relationships button will appear only if the resource is a BIBFRAME work, instance, or item that has BIBFRAME relationships to other works, instances, or items. One of the improvements behind the scenes here is that Sinopia is now, on the back end, making inverse relationships for some BIBFRAME properties. You can visit the Sinopia documentation, where we will have more information about which properties those are. These BIBFRAME relationships in the search results are also being used in a new feature over in the editor. So I'm going to open this resource in edit mode here, and you'll see there's a new tab on the left, and it's called Relationships. And this shows you the BIBFRAME relationships in the resource you're currently editing. And notice that on this Relationships tab, we're also showing relationships to admin metadata here. We chose to leave those out of the search results to keep the search results cleaner. The other new tab is reversion history. So I'm going to open a fresh resource here to show you how that works. So this is just a simple template where we can see how the versions feature works. So Sinopia is tracking changes to a resource, and it now displays versions and differences between versions. So we don't see the versions tab yet because I haven't done anything yet in this blank form, but I'm going to add some data here in this literal field. And I'm going to save that. And now you see the versions tab has appeared. So there's now one version of this. I'm going to change that value and save again. And now there's two versions of this resource along with the current version, and I'll just do it one more time. So now there's three versions. You could preview any of those versions by clicking on the eye icon. And you can compare versions to see what the difference is between one version and another. So you're going to choose the two versions you want to compare. So I want to compare the first one I did to the one I'm looking at right now, which is the same as the last one I've saved. So you compare one in the left, click one in the left column, one of the radio buttons in the right column, and then click compare. And the difference is that I took away value 1, so whatever's in red went away, and what's in green was added here, changed value. So the comparison is going to be from the perspective of what's ever in the second column. So like if I reversed those columns, let's try doing version 3 instead of current version. Well, that's better. And so now it's the comparison, the difference is reversed. Now it's with respect to version 1. Version 1 had value 1, but didn't have changed value. The next improvement I'm going to show is about language tagging. We are now using the IANA registry tags for language to align with RDF standards. And we've added the ability to tag script and transliteration as well as language. So when you click on this language button here, you see now you can select a language, take away the one that was there. So these are all the tags from the IANA registry, and you can type ahead to narrow the list down and select one. Same with script and several of the most popular transliteration schemes. And as you select these values, Sinopia gives you a preview here of the language tag that's going to be created and added to your RDF statement. So note here, Sinopia is not checking the validity of any combination of language, script, and transliteration. I'll save that, and you can see in the preview here. The language tag isn't in the preview yet because I didn't put in a literal. Let's add a value here and then try that again. Here we go. So there's that tag I created. Okay, a related part of this improvement is the ability to select a default language or default set of language script transliteration tags for all the literals that will subsequently be entered in this resource by you in this session. So setting this is not going to affect any literals you've already entered, but if you click this box, it will affect other literals you haven't entered yet. So you can see it already got filled in here for these other fields. I said in your session, but I think it's persistent for this resource, but we have to test that out. Now I'm going to move on to some template configuration improvements. So the first template configuration improvement is that Sinopia now allows you to set up a field that gives the cataloger a choice of properties. So this is useful when you have a situation where there are numerous properties that could be relevant for a particular thing being cataloged, but you don't want to pre-create a field for every possible property. For example, a BIBFRAME work could be related to one or more other works. And since the BIBFRAME ontology includes properties for a number of specific kinds of relationships, such as accompanied by, preceded by, and other addition of, you would previously have had to set up a template with a separate field for each of those relationships, not knowing, of course, in advance whether any given work would need to make use of these fields. So with this new feature, you could create a single field something like relationships to other works, for example. That's what I've done here. I've got one field. And you can give the cataloger the option to choose from several relevant properties. So this is right now is a field just with this property related to. But I want to give the cataloger a choice of some other properties when this field is filled out. So we've now made this in a property template. The property itself is repeatable. So I'm going to add another choice here. I'm going to leave the related to choice here because I want there to be a kind of a generic relationship property, but I'm going to add preceded by, and I'll also add companies, and I'll add other edition of. So this label will be displayed when someone opens this template for cataloging. So you can put whatever is useful there as a display. The whole URI of the property will also be displayed. So you can keep that in mind. Okay, so let's save this and then we'll see how that looks. And note that in this example, I'm using choices that are all from the same ontology. And in fact, these three choices are sub-properties of the first choice. But you can use any properties you want from any ontology in any combination in this feature. So you could combine, you could offer a choice of an RDA property and a BIBFRAME property and a schema.org property, whatever is working for your particular use case. So I'm going to open this template. I'm going to save my changes and open this for cataloging. Making sure to do a hard refresh so I see my changes. Oops, sorry, I opened the wrong one there. Okay, so here's my template with one field, relationships to other works, and here's the property. And instead of just having the property in the background, like we used to, there's now a choice. This is a dropdown. So as I'm cataloging, I could choose any of these properties. So I want to say this work is preceded by this other work. And then I have another relationship to add. So this one is, it accompanies, I'm doing a lookup here to other works in Sinopia. It accompanies this work and so on. So I was able to do that as a cataloger, even though the template creator only had to set up one field for me. I can essentially make all these different sorts of relationship statements here. We have another new template configuration feature that gives yet again more flexibility to the template. Sorry, I need to open the correct template here. Let's try this one. Okay, so the next template configuration feature will allow the cataloger to choose an optional additional class for the resource. The use case here is wanting to make a generic template for a class, but at the same time, let the cataloger specify what subclass the resource is. For example, many of the fields that are used to describe BIBFRAME instance subclasses, like electronic, print, manuscript, and tactile, may be quite similar. So rather than having to create a template for each of those instance subclasses, you, as the template creator, might wish to create a single generic BIBFRAME instance template, but still allow the cataloger to specify what kind of instance is being cataloged. So to do that, you use this optional classes field that is now in template configuration. And you add whatever other classes you would want the cataloger to be able to apply at cataloging time. So in my use case example, I gave it an example of subclasses of the main class here. But in fact, you can use any classes you want from any ontology. They don't have to at all be related to the main class. So this gives you flexibility, but of course it doesn't enforce any kind of logic. So I'll add tactile and print. You can give this a label after you have to give it a label, but you can give it whatever label you want. Save this, go back to the dashboard with the hard refresh and open this for cataloging. And you see now, instead of a single class that's like what we used to have, you have a choice here to add additional optional classes. So the main class of instance, you can't change that. That's why it's highlighted. But optionally, you could add this thing is a print. You could also click more than one of the optional classes if appropriate. Okay, I'm going to go back again to the template editing or configuration view to show another new or improved feature here, which has to do with remarks on fields. So remarks are the help text for each field. And previously, Sinopia allowed you to create a remark or a remark URL, but we could only display one of them. The remark displayed as text and the remark URL is displayed as an icon that opens up a new web page. Now a template can have both types of field level help. And in addition, you can put hyperlinks in the textual help. So here's the remark I added on this other date field. I put some text here, and I also put a URL in the text. And I added a remark URL that points to this helpful page on the BIBFRAME site. So you probably wouldn't need to do both of these, but I just want to show you all the possibilities. So let's go back to see how that looks when you're editing. So you see two icons here next to the field name. The I icon shows the text that I added, and the URL that I put here is clickable. And then the link icon would open the web page that I specified, just like before. But one thing we've added is that the label that I put into the template configuration shows here on the mouse over. Let's go back here for a second so you can see where that was. In remark URL, I had put the web page to link to, and then this label. This label here is what is showing up when I mouse over the link. Okay, the final two template configuration features I'll talk about are for literal fields. First is validation. So you can now configure a literal to accept data only of a certain data type or only matching a given regular expression. And you will find these in the literal attributes section. I'm going to go to this count field here and open up literal attributes. So you can add a data type, and there's several types to choose from. You can also write your own regular expression here and enter it in this field. Whatever validation you choose here will be applied when the cataloger fills out the template. So what I'm going to do for this field is say that it has to be an integer. And then we'll see how that gets exposed in the editor. Let me save this, do a hard refresh, go over here to my dashboard. Okay, so now the count field, one thing that's happened is the explanatory text is more specific now. Instead of enter a literal, which is the standard literal instruction, it says enter an integer. So I should know that I can't just put any old thing in here. And then what I put here will be validated once I click save. So I'm going to enter one thing and now I'll click save. And this will warn me that my value did not match the expected data type. So again, it won't validate until you click save, but when you try to correct it, it will revalidate immediately. So let me try something else. Oh, now it's happy. So also what's going to happen is Sinopia will indicate the data type when the RDF statement is created. One thing to notice here is that if a field is controlled by a data type validation, then there won't be a language option here, because RDF doesn't allow a literal to have both a data type and a language tag. So we removed the option to even add a language tag. And speaking of language tags, let's go back one more time to how the template is configured for that last template literal configuration feature, which is that if you have another reason for not showing the language tag, you can now suppress it. So here under, let's go to a different field that doesn't have any validation. Let's see, the awards field under property attributes. I can add another attribute here and I could choose language suppressed. What that will do is take away the language button. If for a certain field it's not even appropriate, rather than having the cataloger have to remove the default language, you can just not even have a language tag for that field. So the final thing that I want to show is that every resource now has a URL that can be used to open the resource directly, whether it's a template or a resource. So let's search for an already cataloged resource here. This URL in your browser, you can save this and bookmark it. You can send it to someone else. And then when they use this URL, they'll go right to opening the resource in the editor if they have permission, or in preview if they don't have permission. Now there are different URL forms depending on if it's something you want to edit or if it's a template that you want to share for a cataloger to open as a blank form and fill in. And all this is documented in the release notes, but the easy thing to do is whatever you're looking at, if you want to share that, just copy the URL from your browser and you can do that. And note that if you are working in tabs, so I have 3 tabs open right now, but I want to go to another resource. So I'm going to paste that into my browser URL and hit go. Then it's going to essentially hard refresh the application and your tabs are going to disappear. You will go to the thing that you put in your bar, but the tabs you had before aren't going to be there anymore. Just something to note. It's not going to create another tab. It's going to create a whole new window with the URL that you specified. So that concludes this demo of Sinopia versions 3.12, 13, and 14. And again, please visit the help site for more details.